the most powerful empire on Earth, vanished, not conquered, not overthrown. Vanished. One generation they ruled everything from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean Sea. Millions of people, dozens of cities, the largest empire the world had ever seen. The next generation, gone. Cities abandoned, population collapsed by 90%. The empire that invented empire itself, erased. The survivors wrote about it. They called it a curse from the gods. But modern science has found something else, something that explains not just what happened to Akkad, but what could happen to us. Because the force that destroyed the first empire, it's happening again, right now, today. This is the story of the first climate collapse in recorded history. 4,000 years ago, the rains stopped, the rivers shrank, the crops died, and a civilization that thought it would rule forever discovered that nature doesn't care how powerful you are. This is the Curse of Akkad. To understand how it fell, you need to understand how high it climbed. By 2200 BCE, the Akkadian Empire had existed for over a century. 4 generations of kings, Sargon the founder, Rimush and Manishtushu, his sons, and then Naram Sin, his grandson. And Naram Sin didn't just maintain the empire, he expanded it, pushed the borders further than Sargon ever dreamed, crushed the largest rebellion in Mesopotamian history, a coalition of every major city rising up at once. He won. They all lost. And then Naram Sin did something unprecedented, something that shocked even his own people. He declared himself a god, not favored by the gods, not chosen by the gods, a god. He added the divine symbol to his name. He wore the horned helmet of divinity, something only gods were supposed to wear. Think about that for a second. This would be like a president today declaring himself equal to Jesus or Buddha or Allah in public, officially, and demanding everyone accept it. But here's what Naram Sin didn't understand. Here's what none of them understood. Everything they had built, every city, every army, every temple, all of it depended on one thing: water. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the irrigation canals, the seasonal floods that deposited fertile soil. Remove the water and you don't have an empire. You have a desert with ruins in it. And the water was about to disappear. But first, Naram Sin made another mistake, maybe his worst one. He attacked Nippur, the holy city, the religious center of all Mesopotamia, the city of Enlil, king of the gods. He didn't just attack it, he sacked it, destroyed temples, killed priests, desecrated sacred ground. To the people of Mesopotamia, this wasn't just war, this was cosmic crime. And they believed the gods would respond. According to the ancient poem, the gods held council. Enlil was furious. His city had been violated, his temples burned. And so the gods made a decision. They would destroy Akkad. Not quickly, not mercifully, slowly, completely. They would erase it from existence. That's the myth. But the reality was worse. Around 2200 BCE, something changed. Not in politics, not in war, in the climate. Modern scientists call it the 4.2 Kiloyear Event, a megadrought that struck the entire eastern Mediterranean and Middle East. Ice cores from Greenland show it. Sediment layers from the ocean floor show it. Tree rings from ancient wood show it. The same event, the same time, recorded in ice thousands of miles away. The evidence is overwhelming. The rains stopped for decades, maybe longer. Now put yourself in the sandals of an Akkadian farmer. You've worked the same fields your father worked, your grandfather worked. The floods come every year. You plant, you harvest, you pay taxes to the empire. Life continues. Then one year, the floods are smaller. You get less grain. Okay, Bad year, it happens. Then the next year is worse, and the next, and the next. Your children are hungry, your animals are dying, and the tax collectors still come. People started moving, abandoning villages, heading toward the rivers, toward anywhere that still had water. Archaeological evidence shows it clearly. Northern Mesopotamia, the rain-fed agricultural zone, collapsed. Settlements abandoned, population crashed. The people who survived fled south toward the irrigated lands along the rivers. Imagine if the entire American Midwest emptied out in a decade. Millions of people flooding into California and Texas. That's the scale we're talking about. But here's the problem. The southern cities couldn't absorb them all. There wasn't enough food. There wasn't enough water. The rivers were lower too. There wasn't enough of anything. The administrative systems Sargon had built, they were designed for normal times, for taxes flowing in and services flowing out, not for managing a civilization-wide refugee crisis while the food supply collapsed. And that's when the Gutians appeared. The Gutians, mountain people from the Zagros range. For generations, the Akkadian army had kept them out, pushed them back, made them fear the empire. But now the army was stretched thin. Soldiers hadn't been paid. There wasn't enough grain. Garrisons were abandoned. The borders were weak. Imagine you're a Gutian chief. You've watched this empire dominate your people for a century. And now their soldiers look hungry. Their walls aren't manned. Their king is dealing with rebellions everywhere. What do? You attack. The Gutians raided. Then they raided again. Then they started taking territory. The Akkadian kings tried to respond. But you can't fight a war when your army is starving. You can't defend a border when your cities are in revolt. You can't hold an empire together when the fundamental resource it depends on, food, water, stability, has disappeared. Within a generation, it was over. The city of Akkad itself, Sargon's capital, the center of the empire, was destroyed, so completely that we've never found it. Think about that. The capital of the first empire in human history. A city that ruled the world. Lost. We know it existed from hundreds of references in ancient texts. But the actual location? Gone. Buried. Forgotten. The ancient poem describes it. The great fields produced no grain. The flooded fields produced no fish. The watered gardens produced no honey and wine. Everything stopped. The poem goes further. It describes horrors. For the first time since cities were built, the great fields produced no grain. The people could not find food to eat. The mother did not care for her children. The father did not care for his wife. These aren't just poetic images. Archaeological evidence confirms widespread famine, collapsed populations, abandoned cities, mass graves. The empire didn't just fall, it starved. The last Akkadian king, Shar-Kali Shari, Naram-Sin's son, spent his entire reign fighting collapse, fighting Gutians, fighting rebels, fighting drought, fighting everything. When he died, the scribes wrote something unprecedented, something that tells you exactly how bad it had gotten. Who was king? Who was not king? They didn't know. The record-keeping had collapsed. The administration had collapsed. The concept of central authority had collapsed. Nobody was in charge because there was nothing left to be in charge of. For about a century, Mesopotamia fragmented. The Gutians controlled some areas. Local city-states re-emerged in others. Ur, Lagash, Uruk. Cities that had been conquered by Sargon 3 generations earlier were independent again. But it wasn't freedom. It was chaos. Without the imperial trade networks, goods couldn't move. Without central administration, irrigation systems failed. Without unified defense, everyone was vulnerable. The empire that Sargon built in conquest had, ironically, created stability. Its collapse created suffering. And someone sat down and wrote about it. wrote the poem we call the Curse of Akkad. To them, the explanation was clear. Naram-Sin angered the gods. He sacked Nippur. He claimed divine status. And the gods punished Akkad. It's a moral story. Hubris is punished. Pride comes before the fall. But we know something they didn't. We have evidence they couldn't imagine, and that evidence tells a different story. In the 1990s, scientists began piecing together what actually happened. Harvey Weiss at Yale excavated a site called Tel Leilan in Syria, a thriving city during the Akkadian period, and he found something strange. The city was abandoned suddenly, and above the abandonment layer, dust, wind-blown dust, meters of it, decades of it. No one was there to sweep it away. The evidence matched climate data from ocean sediments, from cave formations, from lake beds across the region. Around 2200 BCE, a massive drought struck. It lasted for over a century, and it was severe enough to collapse civilizations. And it wasn't just Akkad. Egypt's old kingdom collapsed around the same time. The pyramid builders couldn't build anymore. The Nile floods failed. Central authority fragmented. Before GPS, before satellites, before any global monitoring, civilizations on opposite ends of the ancient world collapsed simultaneously. They had no contact with each other. They didn't share information. But they shared a climate. And when that climate changed, they all fell. So what really killed the Akkadian Empire? Not the Gutians. They were opportunists, exploiting weakness that already existed. Not Naram-Sin's hubris, though the conquest of Nippur didn't help. The Akkadian Empire was killed by climate change, by a drought severe enough to collapse the agricultural systems the entire civilization depended on. And here's what should keep you up at night. We are changing our climate right now. Faster than the 4.2 Kiloyear Event changed theirs. And we have a lot further to fall. The Akkadians thought they were invincible. They had conquered everything, built systems that seemed permanent. Their king called himself a god, and then the rain stopped. They didn't have satellites to predict it, didn't have global supply chains to import food, didn't have technology to adapt. We do. The question is whether we'll use it. The Curse of Akkad wasn't divine punishment. It was a lesson about what happens when civilizations ignore the environment they depend on. 4,000 years later, we still haven't learned it. But here's the thing about history. It doesn't end. After about a century of chaos, a new power emerged, the third dynasty of Ur, a Sumerian renaissance. They rebuilt, reorganized, created new administrative systems even more sophisticated than Akkad's. The drought eventually eased, the rains returned, and civilization continued. Akkad was gone, but Mesopotamia survived, and Akkad left its mark. The Akkadian language survived for 2,000 more years as the language of diplomacy. Later empires, Assyria, Babylon, looked back to Sargon and Naram-Sin as models. Even the curse itself survived. The poem was copied and recopied for centuries. A warning, a reminder. This is what happens when empires fall. Next time, we leave Mesopotamia. While Akkad rose and fell, another civilization was building something even more enduring along another great river. Egypt, the pyramids, the pharaohs. A civilization that would last 3,000 years. How did they build monuments that still stand today? How did they create a culture so powerful it fascinates us 4 millennia later? And what can they teach us about building things that last? The Nile is calling.